Welcome into a new edition of Odd Man Rush. I'm Will Highland with Kyle Diezel. We're getting ready for the Stanley Cup Final. We've done a pod after each round, and this is, I believe, is our fourth playoff specific pod because we did one before the playoffs, one after round one, one after round two, and this will be after the conference final, our fourth. We'll do one more when the Stanley Cup is over. And then we'll do a draft and free agency pod. So just because we're heading into the final round of the playoffs, everyone, doesn't mean that we're going to take the summer off. We expect it to be a big summer. But before we get to that, speaking of summer, Kyle, can we have a weather report? And welcome.
Yeah, it was supposed to rain all weekend. Turned out to be really sunny. We're gonna hit our first 8-degree weather this week here in Boston, so can't complain too much here in the city. Well, up there in Maine.
Up here we've got, it's been tough. It's been tough to, like I said last time, to get your lawn mowed. It's been tough to do really anything outside. But we have brighter skies ahead. I think we've got 10 weekends in a row with measurable rain. But I hope the next coming week we can get the get the sun beating down and dry out the grass, dry out the baseball fields, and get us into grilling season. Um, but speaking of the sun, the team that revolves around Sunrise, Florida, is back in the Stanley Cup, and this is the third straight year that they're in the Stanley Cup, and they are a wagon once again. That is the Florida Panthers. What did you make of their win in the conference final over Carolina? I can't. Who did I pick in the series? I forget. I think I picked Florida, right?
But yes, you did. I'm pretty sure you did.
Okay. I
Um,
I thought Carolina would put up more of a fight.
I mean, I kind of expected them. I think I said that the Panthers would win in 5 games. I think I did give the Canes one. I just don't see it for some reason. The Canes, when they come up against the Panthers, the Lightning, whoever it might be, they just seem to lay a goose egg. What's their record now in Eastern Conference Final for like the last 3 or 4 series? They're like
16.
1-16. Like
Yeah.
do that, you can go all the way to make it there, but never get over that hump. It's like Toronto; they can never get
Or
out of
Dallas, which we'll get
that.
to in a bit. Yeah. I,
Like
I think I think for Carolina in 19 they were like really young team. They weren't ready. Um, I think in 2023 or 21 they made it as well. I want to say it was 2023 they certainly did. And they ran into the same Florida team by and large. And I think Florida was just on a magic carpet ride of a playoff run that year with who they were beating. And then this year, I think like Carolina made quick work of the Devils, quick work of the Capitals, who everyone was all gung ho about. And then they play a team that punches you in the mouth. And I hate to say it, because I do like Carolina. I like the way they play. Um, but I'm not convinced that Rod Brindamore's scheme will can beat a team like Florida. Like it just seems like they were a little underprepared for a team that plays as hard and punches you around as much as Florida has. And I hate to say it, but they felt a little small in the moment. I mean, what was the score in the first 3 games? A combined like 18-5 or something like that. It was
correct.
insane.
Yeah, no, I mean you touched on it. They got out bullied the entire series by the Panthers. Like they're bullying the Capitals, they're bullying the Devil, they're bullying their own division. But once they step out their own division, they become the small dog and can't seem to comprehend and get over that next step. I don't know if going forward for them what goaltending is going to look like. Um,
Right.
Goaltending is going to be a huge factor. I know another team we're going to talk about here in a little bit, the Oilers goaltending going into the finals here. Who's going to be your starter out of your three you've got? But for the Hurricanes, I just don't see it. I don't see the dog in them to get over this next step. And what you talk about with Brendan Moore there, he's going to stay, but
Right. Yeah. He's one of the best coaches in the league. I
correct.
just
But the thing is,
he's
when
gonna
do
have
you
to
have?
make changes.
I mean, it's like what we talked about with Toronto. When is enough enough when you see the same results and you get nowhere?
Yeah.
All it
Right.
good. And when do you call? When do you have to take the next step or make the change? I should say for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we'll have plenty of time in the offseason to talk about teams like Carolina or Toronto or whomever. Um, but the first thing I think of is, they did have a big roster turnover the past couple of years. Like it hasn't been the same team every time, which makes them different than the Maple Leafs. But the core is roughly the same, and I think they've been a team that's been aggressive. They're willing to take big swings. They took a big swing in last year at the trading deadline, brought in Gensel. He didn't stay. They took a big swing to try and get Mikko Rantanen. He stayed there like a month or two. And so I think for Carolina, they'll need to they'll need to somehow get bigger. And 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 do so without compromising their speed in the way that Rod likes to coach. So I don't know what the perfect answer is. I don't think Freddie was really the problem, which sounds weird considering they gave up 18 goals in the first three games, I believe. But like I don't think it was an Anderson problem. I really don't. I think honestly, Diesel, and tell me if you agree or disagree. I think it's less that Carolina lost the series and more that Florida just won the series. Like Florida, it seemed like their win over the Maple Leafs in the way that they did, being down 2-0 in the series and coming back to win, and how emphatic they were taking their Game 7 performance and really just extending it for the first three games of the conference final. I think it was mostly that Florida won that series, the way they played. I think Barkov should win the Conn Smythe. I know that's a different discussion, but I think he's having a tremendous postseason. I think Bobrovsky's amazing. Marchand, didn't have as many stats in the conference final as he or numbers points wise than he did against Toronto and Tampa, but you know they seem like a team that is just built for it, and so perhaps it's more that Florida won more than it is that Carolina lost.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. I mean, as we figured, Carolina was just going to. We thought they put up a decent fight, but we've seen the same results in and out. Let's talk about the same core. Defensively, they were hurt as well. They're missing two of their top four defenders, so that also played a little bit of factor. But as you mentioned, I wouldn't say it's just goaltending. Defensively, they could have done a little bit better, but has to do with Panthers' overall power. They were just dominating from lines 1 to line 4, and never let off the gas pedal. I think the thing is for this Panthers team, they're just so well balanced from line 1 to line 4, and I think that was the overall factor that Carolina could just not compete with a team that has so much depth. And I think Carolina needs to, like you talk about, get bigger, start looking at trying to keep a team as a whole together to move forward. But the Panthers, I think, is going to be a very tough challenge. I think it's a different Edmonton team, what we saw from last year, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly agree. For Florida, they just seem like a team that's just well balanced. And I look at their centermen and their top wingers, and it's just really hard to find a hole in that team. With their centers and the way they go down the middle, and with Barkov being the top center, you've got Lindell, and then on the wings it's Kachuk and Marchand, Verhage. I mean, it's just really hard to beat that team as they're currently constructed when they have Seth Jones playing the way he is playing in the back end and the rest of that, and Ekblad and everyone else. It's like pick your poison. Whereas I think with Carolina, you go below that top six, it starts to get thinner quicker than before. And just to put a bow in the Hurricanes, I think Anderson's their guy because I'm looking while you were talking. I did a quick search of the free agent goalies, and it's like Dan Vladar, Ilya Samsonov, Vitek Vanacek, Georgiev, Ville Huso, and that's about it. I mean, Jake Allen, he's old. We
Yeah.
know a lot about him. Alex Lyon. I mean, there's not a lot of names there for UFA goalies, so I think Anderson's their guy. So if you're Carolina, you just got to find a way to possibly add some depth there. There is a ton of free agents that we'll spend a lot of time talking about, and I'm sure that the Hurricanes are already looking ahead to that. All right, so you brought up the Oilers and how they're a different team. Um, I thought this series was going to go seven with Dallas. Similar to the Hurricanes, it seems like Dallas is kind of stuck in neutral in the playoffs. They're not going in reverse like the Maple Leafs, but they seem stuck in neutral. What do you think about the way Dallas played, compared to what our expectations were?
Yeah, I thought Dallas, they just start the series get winning game one with a huge statement, come back and they're down 3-0, 3-1 to start that first game, and then made the comeback and then just flop the last four games. I don't know what happened. I do think there's going to be an issue going forward when you pull your starting goaltender in game elimination game after two goals or two shots on goal that go in. Pull your goalie out, and then huge statement there for that team. I'm a little bit worried about Dallas's future. Talking about also Team USA's future of who your starting goaltender will be. Jake Onger did not show up. He did not perform. Um,
Yeah,
and to call him out in the press conference game at the end of the day is not a good thing to have as your franchise goaltender.
yeah. Peter DeBoer
So for
said
that,
some things. Yep.
it, I would be shaking that team if I was an overall player on that team. I'd be a little bit shaken. But the Oilers, I don't know. They've just been playing phenomenally. This is a team I think, as we talked about before, is a quiet team that everyone thinks they're going to get there, potentially not because of how rough the Western Conference is. And now they're back here again. For me, the question is the goaltending. Who are you going to start out of your three to
Well, it's
go?
gonna be Skinner.
It's here to start, probably, but end of the day, they're going to go with whoever's the hot hand, whoever wins a game is who you stick with, or are you going to flip flop after a loss here against a team I would say is a little bit more well balanced, but star studded players would be the Oilers here. So I think this will be an interesting series, just like last year.
Well, Pickard won them 6 games in a row at one point
Correct.
in this playoffs. But Skinner's the guy that's got them here to this point. The last few rounds, mainly the last several games, and Skinner's also the guy that is going to want another crack at the Panthers after last year.
Yeah.
Um, I look at a team like Dallas, and I wonder how they're going to how they're going to move on and be different in the future. I mean, Sagan is an unrestricted free. Sorry, not Sagan. Jamie Benn is an unrestricted free agent. He's 37. What's he gonna do? Um, they seem like a team that really needs help on defense.
Yeah.
And like we just talked about the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have two defensemen, Orlov and Burns, who are going to be free agents. Maybe the Stars look at one of those guys. I mean, I think the Stars are going to have to align themselves differently. Pardon the pun. Like they're going to have to like build a team because they still have a really good core, but like Wyatt Johnson was nowhere to be found. Mikko Rantanen had a great middle of the playoffs. Didn't really show up in the conference final. They have they have core pieces there, hence and Johnson and Robertson and Rantanen. I mean, they have pieces to in Ottinger, of course, but they just seem like a team that's missing a little bit of that extra factor. Because you think they have it, they're so good in these game sevens, and then you see them against Edmonton, and I think Edmonton suffocated them. I think Edmonton played better defense than I think anyone would have given them credit for. So I think if you're looking at a blueprint on how to win the Stanley Cup in the mid 2020s, I think it's you have to have a defensive core that can just log minutes for you. And I don't think anyone would have expected Edmonton to do that this year with that group that they have. Different. especially losing one of their defensemen early on in the playoffs. But they've become a team that they answered their big question. The big question about the Oilers was, I don't know, what about their defense in the playoffs? Well, they've answered that during this postseason. So I think for Dallas, they're going to have to answer some of their big questions. And one of them might have to be, is Peter DeBoer the guy? Because I'm with you, Diesel. Like, that's shocking for a guy that's been there that long and gone to the conference final as much as he has and been in these big stages. And for a guy like Ottinger, who is perceived to be one of the best in the league, for him to speak about his goaltender like that and not just say, oh, we pulled him because we thought he needed to play better, but to go out there and cite statistics about how he's lost X amount of games in a row to the Oilers and stuff is like, well, dude, so have you. You're the head coach of this team. So, I mean, like that's crazy to me. Like I and after pulling a guy in a must-win game five after only 2 goals, I mean, 2 goals is nothing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially when you have a roster that includes Rantanen and Wyatt Johnson and Sagan and everyone else. It's it's bizarre to me. So I don't know what the Oilers are going to do. Excuse me, what the Stars are going to do. To answer your to piggyback, I should say, on your point about the Oilers and their goaltending. I wouldn't overthink it if I'm Chris Knobloch. I would just start Skinner and just ride Skinner. I don't think there's any reason to overthink the goalie situation. Like, what do you think happens if so they have home ice advantage, which is different than
Yeah.
last year. It's a completely different series than last year. Partially because of all the things we talked about already, but also because Edmonton has home ice advantage. I think they got to win both games at home.
No, I agree. They have to win both games at home. You can't let the Panthers squeeze one in.
I
Uh,
think it's okay if you lose game one at home as long as you win game two. But what you don't want to happen is win game one, lose game two, and then Florida goes back home with momentum.
yeah, I agree. I think for me, I just don't. They can't afford to lose either of those games. To be honest, I don't think they can afford to lose either one, just because the Panthers just how they are. They're sneaky teams. They'll get underneath your skin. I think game one is going to be the definer of the rest of the series and how this is going to play out. But as you said, momentum. If they lose game one, okay, you just can't let the Panthers win game two. If the Oilers win game one, you cannot let the Panthers win game two overall. If you go in the 1-1 down south, it's going to be a little tough going down there. Just we know how that crowd is and how they play down there at home. But as you talked about, they have the series 4 games at home. However, I'm not sure if it's going to go all 7 games. I do think
Yeah.
that 6.
You think it's gonna go six? So the really interesting thing is, and one of the similarities from last year, obviously, that's something that hasn't changed. Is the location and the travel time. That was something that the Oilers complained a lot about last year. They had to go to Dallas, they had to go to LA, they had to go to Florida. Well, they're gonna have to go to all those places again because they pretty much
Yeah.
played the same opponents, except instead of going to Vancouver, they went to Vegas. So they've actually traveled more this postseason than last postseason. So look, it's gonna be tough for both teams. Florida, you know, they played Toronto and um, they played Tampa and they played uh, the Hurricanes, and so I mean they really haven't traveled that much. They traveled to Toronto, and that was it. So kind of similar to last year. The only difference is last year they had Boston, and I believe they had um, I want to say the Rangers. So very similar travel, but the way this factors into the Cup final is because home ice advantage is flipped. If you go to a game four and or excuse me, if you go to a game five, if you're in Edmonton, and let's say you're in game five and it's 2-2, okay, well you're gonna have to go play a game six no matter what.
Yeah.
But if it's 3-1 and you're in Edmonton for a game five, and let's say the Panthers force a game six at home, then you're gonna force the Oilers to do what they had to do last year, which is travel across the continent after they thought they might clinch that night,
Yeah.
wait 3 more days, play, and then play a road game, which is what the Panthers had to do last year. And so that's where some of that psychology plays in your mind is, you start getting late in the series. Now instead of one game or one day in between games, there's two. And that can psychologically play a role. So I think home ice is going to favor the travel is going to favor Edmonton because they get to start out at home and they've actually had to be the road team in every series, just like the Panthers. But I think early on, the travel will favor Edmonton. But
I agree. Travel, we talked about last year, travel being a huge factor. However, I think they can't go into game five and it's not going to be a sweep. We know the series is not going to be a sweep. They can't go into game five being down 3-1 in the series. They cannot be a
which
full
team? The Oilers?
Oilers. They cannot afford to be down 3-1 in the series, even though we've seen them come back. I just
Yeah.
don't see them going back down to Florida for game six to tie the series. I just don't see it this year. It's very different, flip flop in the series of where who was home the first two, who was away. I just don't see it. They can't afford to be down. It's a much different atmosphere versus last year. Yes, they did come back from 3-0,
Yeah.
but
And
uh,
and you make a good point because last year when they were down 3-0, they're playing game 4 at home. They
yeah,
win game 4. Okay, it's 3-1. Now they're going to Florida. Florida's at home. The pressure's now on Florida. Edmonton's like, look, we won a game. Like, no way, people thought we were going to get swept. But we won a game. They win game 5 in Sunrise, Florida, and they drag the series back to Alberta. And then now they get a home game and they have all the momentum. They've won 2 in a row. Then they force a game 7. Then of course, game 7 anything can happen. But I do think that sort of worked against the Oilers last year because Edmonton went from being a team that had nothing to lose, down 3-0, to now then they had to go on the road and they had to bring their families to
yeah,
Florida. Now all of a sudden, like we talked about last year, the pressure was on Edmonton because now they're a road team in a game 7 and they hadn't experienced the stress of a clinching game, whereas Florida had played 3 of them and sure they had lost all 3 of them, but they were cool as a cucumber. So I wonder about preparedness being a rematch. I think Edmonton, as I talked about, is a much more defensively sound team in 2025 than they were in 2024. I don't think Florida's changed that much.
no,
I think Florida, I think Florida's, I think this is the best Panther team we've seen personally.
no. I would agree with that. Do you think that even though Edmonton is home for the series, do you think they have more pressure being home and coming back to this to win it versus the Panthers if they lose this series?
Yeah. I mean, I think both teams have an equal amount of pressure. Um, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the Oilers. They play late at night. I haven't watched a lot of their games live. So how they play each minute, each second of every game, I'm not an expert on. But I do know that the Oilers have once again, because of who they are and the players on that team, whether it's McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, whomever, they have high draft picks on that team who have never won a cup. And they know how hard it is to get back. They're playing without Ekholm and now Hyman. And they have home ice. And I think the pressure of Edmonton is huge. Um, I think they have an insane amount of expectations on them all year. Now, credit to them, they've met them. They're back right where they are in the rematch, exactly like Hyman said in that documentary. Um, but I'm not gonna say that Florida has more pressure than Edmonton right now. I think Florida knows, like, look, we've won our cup. If we lose this cup, sure, they have, I would say, an equal amount of pressure because, like, if they lose 2 out of 3 years, they're gonna look back at that. Kachuk's gonna look back at that, look back at his 2025 and say, "Wow, I lost the Four Nations face-off." to McDavid, and now I'm losing the Stanley Cup to McDavid, and I could have won back to back, and now it's going to be harder and harder for Florida to keep the band together. Because Marchand's, I mean, they bring in Marchand, they bring in Seth Jones. They have this perfect formula that Maurice and Barry Zito or Bill Zito has put together. So it's gonna be really hard for them to keep the band together going forward. But then again, it is for Edmonton too. Like McDavid's gonna be a free agent pretty soon and doesn't have a contract. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. But I think there's an equal amount of pressure, but if I had to put more, I'd say Edmonton has slightly more.
Okay, that answers my question.
Do you agree though? Like, who do you think has more pressure to win this series? Because like we can
Edmonton,
talk about the hockey X's and O's, but like I think it's pretty straightforward. These games are going to be knuckle fights.
yeah,
Um, but what do you expect?
yeah. I mean, you just covered it. I mean, I think Edmonton's got more pressure than the Panthers. I wouldn't say it's a little. I think it's a lot more. I mean, this is a chance for them to finally win another Stanley Cup after umpteen years of not having one back up there up north. So I think for Edmonton to also come back, how do you come back for a third time after losing twice in the
That's
Stanley Cup?
true.
How do you do that? Like, how do you know what the recipe for success is? We can get there. Kind of like we talk about Toronto and we talk about the Hurricanes. We can get there. We just can't win it. What do we have to do to improve our team?
Yeah, you're convincing me. It's true because like if Florida loses, Florida's like, okay, we've been three times, like we've played a shitload of hockey, pardon my language, like the last three
Yeah,
years. It is what it is. If Edmonton loses, it's like, okay.
yeah.
We,
I mean, you're going to see more of like we talked about as a dynasty right now is what we're seeing with the Panthers starting to develop that culture and team atmosphere. Edmonton, can they? Can we say this is going to be a dynasty if they can get there? If they don't win a Stanley Cup,
no,
like,
absolutely not. And,
what is it be for them? I mean, for them, I think they have the most pressure. Panthers have nothing to lose here. If they win it, phenomenal. Kachuk's going to be so happy he didn't even win, or he did win theirs, but for the Panthers organization, doesn't really. I don't see it even as for a fan base that it means more to them versus for.
oh,
Um,
it 1,000% means more to Oiler fans. I mean, the Oiler fans, like, that's a huge part
yeah,
of Canada,
correct.
is like northern Alberta, some parts of Saskatchewan, parts of BC even. I mean, it's a huge population.
Mm.
Not as much as Leaf fans or Canadian fans, but like that's a huge fan base up there, and that's all they have. Like, there's
Yeah,
no Raptors or Blue Jays, like it's a huge thing for them. So like it's a on the fan base, it's a pressure on that they're feeling as fans, like, oh my God, we need to win. We've got
yeah,
McDavid right now. We've got all these guys in their prime. Um, and we gotta win. He's gotta win. Um, but for Florida, it's like the Florida fans, like, I'm sorry, like they're diehard, but they're gonna move on to the next thing in
yeah.
a month or two.
They're
Like,
and when they're winning and they're not winning, they're
yeah.
not. Put that way.
So yeah, I don't know. You're right though. The pressure on Edmonton because of the fact that a Canadian team hasn't won the cup in so long since '91, or I think.
And they're in back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals here.
Yeah, you're right. How do you come if you lose to Florida back-to-back years, and this the second time you had everything lined up for you, you had home ice and you got another crack at them.
You
Sure,
didn't
you're facing injuries, but
you didn't go 7 games in most of your series. You ended in with 6 or 5, so you've had some extra time, some extra rest here.
yeah,
So
Florida's played more games.
yeah,
McDavid's having an unbelievable year. I mean, 26 points in how many games? Five, and six is 16. So
yes,
26 points in 16 games is unreal. Trisail's got 25. Hopkins has 18. Uh, I've got a question for you.
yep,
Oh, and I guess one more thing. I'm sure you've seen this. Gretzky's first cup lost and then won the following year in a rematch.
yeah. I
Same,
saw that. Did you see
same
that?
thing happened to Sidney Crosby.
Yeah,
Lost, won the following year in a rematch. Those three have been compared to one another in that country and throughout the hockey world their whole lives. So, or at least since McDavid's been compared to Crosby in Gretzky, and Crosby was always compared to Gretzky, and so on. So we'll see. But I guess my question for you is, oh, I know I lost it. Oh, I got it. Okay. If speaking of McDavid,
Mhm.
if McDavid and the Oilers lose, but he wins the Conn Smythe again, is that right or wrong? Because last year we said Bob should have won the Conn Smythe.
Wrong.
You don't give the Super Bowl MVP to somebody who didn't win personally. How valuable are they if their team didn't win? Now I get it, the Conn Smythe is for the entire playoff run. But if you ignore the Stanley Cup Final and the winners of that round, then what are we even talking about? So I would say I don't think he should win despite his amazing numbers if the Oilers don't win the series.
They're gonna do it because it's based on the stats of the players. I mean, look at it
But
for.
Diesel, I'm with you. He won't come out.
Oh,
That's a horrible look.
I know he won't come out, which is how it should be. I mean, look at all the other professional sports league how it works. MVP of football. I know it's regular season, but you base it on what? Numbers. You don't base it on anything else. What the most valuable player is. Same thing for basketball. You don't
I
base it
don't
on.
think that's true.
I think to an extent it is.
Maybe. I mean, the NFL MVP is, yes, based on the regular season numbers, but that's not the same thing as the Conn Smythe winner.
Oh,
That's
I
what like the
I
Hart Trophy is. Now, the
know.
Hart it's a little bit different. I think
I
that Conn Smythe winner should be the most valuable player of the entire playoffs. And if
correct.
you don't deliver a championship for your team, how are you the most valuable player in in the playoffs?
Well, what if they carry their team, for example, to game seven? However, they can't get the finishing touch or the last
Well,
goal.
then they're not that valuable. I'm sorry.
But what if they're averaging like 40 points? Like, come on, like what? How do you say no?
So if he has 40 points, he would have to have 14 more points.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say the series goes 7. You don't think it is. Let's say it does. Let's say he's got 40 points
Mhm.
in 23 games. I don't know how many, I can't remember how many he had last year. I gotta think that would be an insane amount of points.
I'm just saying.
It's hard. It would be really hard. But you know what? They'd have to tell Gary Bettman would have to tell the voters, please do not write down McDavid. Why? Because he's not going to come out. It's going to be a horrible look for us. Last year's playoffs, he had 42 points. So he had 42 points, which is kind of what you said. I don't know, man. Like, but he played how many games last year?
Oh, they played a ton last year.
He played 25 last year. He's not going to get that this year. So if he does 40 and 23 as opposed to 42 and 25, I think that's pretty similar. I don't know. He would be deserving on paper, but in my opinion, and I know this isn't a popular one, you do not give the most valuable player award to somebody who didn't win the championship.
You
I,
shouldn't.
you don't. You should. I mean, by that logic, Tom Brady should have won. I said this last year. He should have won the Super Bowl MVP in against the Eagles in 2018. Want to know why he didn't? Because they lost. Want to know why they lost? Because he got strip sacked in the final 3 minutes, despite throwing for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns or whatever it was. They lost, so he can't be the most valuable. And McDavid last year, 0 points in Game 7. Bobrovsky was amazing in Game 7. It should have been Bob.
It
I don't
should have.
know. I think Bob or Barkov is really the only other thing you could do.
Yeah, I think Barkov probably is playing a little bit better than Bob is currently, but
Yeah. He's got, let's see, Barkov's got 17 points in 17 games. So he's a point per game player. I mean, the Canadian media would lose their ever loving mind
yeah,
if if Barkov had like 25 points in however many games, 24 games. Basically a point per game player. Meanwhile, McDavid's like a point and a half game per game player. But like, sorry, the Panthers won the series, so you're gonna have to get over it. Like McDavid won. He had his Four Nations face-off game-winning goal. If he gets a game-winning goal at all and they win the series, like let's say he doesn't have that many points, but like in game 3, the Oilers win and McDavid scores a game-winning goal or something, but let's say he only has 5 points in the series. I know that sounds like oh, it only has 5 points, but like, yeah, obviously he's a shoo-in, but like Dreisaitl's not that far behind him.
No,
So I don't know. What if Draisaitl finishes with more points, but McDavid has a game-winning goal at some point? To me, that's more valuable than the points because he had the
correct.
game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Final at some point.
Correct. I mean, I think it's more valuable because he helped you. He literally won that game for you. I mean,
Right.
unless
Thank
it's an
you.
assist to it, then like okay, I can debate if it's an assist to it, but like depends on the scenario. What's leading up to the goal?
Yeah. I don't know. I just think like if the Panthers win this series in 6 or 7 games, so they're going to play a lot of games,
Yeah.
which means McDavid's probably going to have a lot of points. I don't think you can give it to Connor again for a second straight year. He won't come out, and if he does, he'll friggin' destroy the trophy at center ice or whatever. There's no chance in hell he'll come out because you watched the Amazon documentary. He
Yeah.
was crying like its dog died or something. Like it was
You're going to have to ship it to his house. He's not coming out.
no, they won't even. They'll just keep it at league headquarters and put his nameplate on it.
He'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame, just sitting there. He won't even leave.
Oh man. All right. One more thing before we get to predictions. What do you think? What do you think will be a more energized atmosphere? Game one before the game before the final even starts in Edmonton, or leading up to a possible series clinching game in Edmonton. Like let's say they could win game five in Edmonton to win the series. Like you think that's going to be excited atmosphere or like a nervous excited atmosphere?
I think it's going to be a nervous, exciting atmosphere. I mean, we saw them come back 3-0 in the series and still drop the ball and give it to the Panthers. I think all Canadian fans are like that right now. It's you're excited, you're there, but you're also nervous in the back of your mind, like, oh shit, are we actually going to win this, or are we just gonna choke again like we've done the last few years? I
Yeah. So
game one,
that's why I think game one will have more excitement because it will just be pure excitement. The stress won't have set in yet because it's game one, and the puck hadn't even been dropped yet.
unless the Oilers are up like 3-1 in the series, maybe 3-2. That maybe might be it. Whatever that game might be, game six or game five. Otherwise, game one's gonna be the one that's gonna be the set in the tone. That's gonna be the make or break for the fan base. I would
Right.
say.
And the Edmonton arena being like closer to downtown and not in a shopping mall like the Panthers, I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Right.
Um, I think it would be hard like the Panther atmosphere, I mean, I'm not like inside the building's fine, but I mean like leading up like around town leading up
Yeah.
to the game. Is it a nervous tension? Is it an excited kind of tension? I think game one Wednesday. I think Wednesday, I mean Sunday night we're recording. This will be out Monday
Yeah.
or Tuesday. So by the time you're listening to this, I don't think anybody in Edmonton will be working. I
Yeah.
don't, the city, I mean, I can't imagine they're going to be working. I would, like on Wednesday, oh, sorry, the whole
They
city's closed.
do a half day maybe. They'll work in the morning and then just prepare for the game. You know how it is.
Right, right, for sure. All right, Kyle, it's prediction time. You can go first. Who wins the series and why and how many games?
Got it. I've got the Panthers in six. I think the Panther first two games are going to be split, and then I think the Panthers are going to uh, also basically win the last two games at home or the two games there at home, and then sorry, I mean split those two games, and then go back to Edmonton, beat them there, and then go on and win at home in Game Six. They're gonna silence the crowd there in Edmonton twice.
Okay, so you think they split on the road, split at home, and then win game five and six to win the series?
Yep.
What do you think gives them the edge?
I think what gives them the edge is going to be Barkov is going to be a huge determining factor. But I also think Bob. I think is we're going to see Bob finally step up and pull another one another miracle out of his butt and just do what he's been doing secretly that people don't talk about enough is his great goaltending.
Yeah, I mean, right now, he's probably, I heard this said the other day, I think it was by Ryan Whitney. The scary thing about Bobrovsky is he can be like really bad,
Yep.
or he could turn into like prime Marty.
Yep.
And the weird thing is, Stuart Skinner is sort of a feast or famine goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in agreement with you. I think it's hard. I don't want to be the guy that says the series is going to come down to goaltending every time because that's a cop out. I kind of said it about Carolina and Florida, and it turned out to be somewhat true. Um, I like your take though on Barkov. I think Barkov's 200-foot game. I think if he played in a different media market, people would, much like his goaltender, people would understand and appreciate
Yep.
his play better. Because he really does play a full, well-balanced game that's really hard to defend against him. His game-winning goal against Carolina was insane, or his setup for that goal. He didn't score it. I think Verhaeghe did, and then similarly, like the way that he plays in his own zone. I mean, against a team as high-powered as Edmonton is really hard. Um, so like for the sake of a good show, I think I think Florida's gonna win. But for the sake of a good show, and because it feels like the stars are aligned with the weird situation between Gretzky winning it in his second year and Crosby winning it in that second year going back and whatnot, I think I'm gonna predict on the pod for the sake of a good show that Edmonton will win the series. I think Edmonton I think Edmonton will get the job done for their Canadian clubs, but unfortunately, they won't do so on home soil. I think they win the series in 6 games. I think, unfortunately, for my pal Brad Marchand, he loses the Stanley Cup for the third time in his career. Um, it seems like, despite helping McDavid and Team Canada win at the Four Nations, I think Marchand, by the way, has cemented himself on the Canadian Olympic team. I think that will mean a lot to him. I think he deserves to be there. I would even contemplate giving him an A in Italy, but that's a different subject, which we'll get to in a second. Um, but yeah, I'll go Oilers in 6. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna do that for the sake of a good show. But nothing will surprise me. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay, we talked about. Oh, I might disappear in a second. Nope, I'm back. Okay, I didn't pull a Jake Onger. Okay, so we've got. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so we've got. Your face isn't moving. I think you froze. You pulled a
I
Austin
didn't freeze.
Matthews.
I think
Okay.
it's you. I'm still here. I can hear you.
All right. I don't
I'm
know.
moving.
It might be my internet. Anyway, not great content. We talked about this a lot. I just hinted at it. The international game is something we care a lot about, something we talk a lot about. The USA goalie situation looked pretty solid. Like it looked like okay, Ottinger's now the guy. Hellebuck struggled, but what do you think after Hellebuck, after Ottinger, after what Swayman did at the World Championships? Like what are we thinking here?
It's an open door. I mean, it's really anyone's net to take at this point. I mean, I could see someone from the outside coming in. For example, I could see Wolf from the Flames coming in and taking that spot from those three guys, just because it doesn't seem like we have a consistent goaltender who is consistent when the stars are bright. Andre didn't show up against Edmonton. Well, you're going to see half of those stars internationally, and then basically Hellbuck just we saw what happened both in the Four Nations and also here in the playoffs. Didn't show up once again. So like, what are you gonna do? Swayman did have phenomenal. Puts himself back up there in contention. I think that's good for him. But I am concerned of now. I'm more worried of what our goaltending is going to be going forward. It seems like Team Canada doesn't have anything to really worry about because they know when to play when the time is right or needed.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I also am worried that like you can't just build your team to beat Canada. You have to beat the other teams too. And so that's what worries me about the USA heading into the Olympics is that we're gonna be like worried about beating Canada in like a gold medal game, but we got to get there first. I think Hellebuck will help you get there.
Correct.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like Otter, I still like Otter. He had a bad series. The way it ended was
Just can't,
bad.
just
I
can't beat Edmonton.
yeah, I think Swayman deserves to be on the team. I think the way he did it right in front of the international world. That does mean that those teams have more film on him. Wolf is a good call out. Thatcher Demko's a good call out. Joey Decord. I think there'll come a time for those guys. But I think for now, it's the three we talked about, and there's gonna have to be a decision to be made. But we'll keep tabs on that. We'll keep tabs on everything else. Before my internet completely dies, we are gonna check out of here. Kyle, are you still here?
I'm still here.
I don't know how that recording's gonna go. We'll have to check the tape. I went full Austin Matthews and I just disappeared. I completely lost. I was like, I just yeah, I don't know. It was like Sean McVay in Super Bowl 53. I just disappeared. I didn't So before my internet dies again, I
They
was
just
saying,
they didn't want
yeah, I legit cannot hear you. So this is not great content. I'm going to have Diezel,
you.
if you're watching on YouTube, Diezel, toss a thumbs up if I get this right. Um, we've got you taking the Panthers in six. I got the Oilers in six. We'll keep tabs on the international stuff. And we'll be back after the Stanley Cup to see who was right and who was wrong. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Odd Man Rush. Sorry about the tech. We'll be back next time, and hopefully I bring better internet here from the Pine Tree State. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody.